The first time Lieutenant Ethan Cross saw Commander Vera, his brain stopped working for a full 3 seconds. She wasn't human, that much was obvious. Her tall frame shimmered under the soft lights of the docking bay, skin like liquid silver. She moved with a grace that made the air seem shy to touch her. Every motion, every glance, carried the kind of quiet confidence only someone not from Earth could have. Ethan was supposed to salute or at least say hello. Instead, he just stared. Vera turned her head, one elegant brow arching. Her eyes glowed faintly gold like melted sunlight. She caught him looking and smiled in that strange, knowing alien way. "You like it, don't you?" Ethan blinked, caught like a deer in headlights. The armor, yeah, very shiny. Her smile widened, a little dangerous, a little amused. "Humans," she said softly, "always pretending they're not looking." He coughed and tried to act busy, fiddling with his wrist communicator. His ears burned. Great first impression, drool over your new alien commander. But when she started walking toward him, all smooth steps and low hums of her suit, Ethan realized two things. One, she was definitely enjoying this, and two, he might be in way over his head. The Illyrian ship Vhalten was nothing like the clunky Terran frigates Ethan was used to. Its halls gleamed like rivers of glass. The walls pulsed faintly with blue light, alive in ways technology shouldn't be. Vera led the way, explaining the systems in a calm, melodic tone. Ethan followed, trying to focus on the details and not on how her voice made his chest feel funny. "The ship's living core responds to emotion," she said. "Harmony keeps it stable. Conflict feeds instability. So, if we argue, the ship gets mad." "Mad?" She tilted her head. "I suppose that's one way to put it." He grinned. "Good thing I'm very charming, then." "Charming," she repeated, tasting the word. Humans have strange faith in that word. When they reached the bridge, Vera gestured for him to take the secondary console. "You will monitor propulsion during the jump." Ethan nodded, sliding into the seat. The controls lit up under his fingers, reading his pulse, his thoughts. "Whoa, it's like it's reading my mind." "It is," she said, walking behind him. "Do not think foolish things." Ethan froze, too late. She gave a soft, almost human laugh. He wasn't sure if she was laughing with him or at him, but he'd take it either way. Hours later, the Vhalten prepared to enter the Kristen Belt, a region infamous for tearing smaller ships apart. Ethan had heard horror stories. Vera looked perfectly calm. "You seem nervous," she said, adjusting the controls. "I just like my organs where they are," he muttered. "Then trust me," she said. "I've never lost a ship." Ethan smiled faintly. "Let's make sure I don't become your first." Her golden eyes flicked to him, curious. "You joke when you are afraid." "Yeah," he admitted. "It's kind of our thing." She seemed to consider that for a moment, then said softly, "Humans are strange. You fear death, yet you laugh in its face. Maybe that's why we keep surviving." Her gaze lingered longer than he expected, something almost tender flickering in her expression. Then the moment passed. "Perhaps that's why you were chosen." "Chosen?" he asked. But before she could answer, the alarms chimed, the jump sequence initiating. The ship trembled as the stars stretched into blinding lines of light. Ethan gripped the console. Vera stood unmoving, one hand steady on the control orb. She looked like a goddess commanding the heavens. When the jump ended, silence filled the bridge. Outside, a million fragments of light glittered, asteroids, frozen gases, fragments of old battles. Ethan exhaled. "We made it." "Of course we did," Vera said without even looking up. Then after a pause she added, "You did well, human." He grinned. "You can say my name, you know." "Ethan," she said slowly as if tasting it. "It sounds soft." "You say it like it's a compliment." "Perhaps it is." Their eyes met. The ship hummed quietly around them, alive and listening. Something electric passed between them, not just curiosity, but the faint spark of something deeper. In that moment, Ethan realized he wasn't just aboard an alien ship on a diplomatic mission. He was standing at the start of something wild, dangerous, and maybe, just maybe, beautiful. Ethan had thought working with Commander Vera would get easier once he got used to her. Turns out, he was wrong. The VHAL-10 was quiet, efficient, and intimidating. Its alien technology moved like it had a heartbeat. Every surface shimmered softly, every corridor whispered. Ethan wasn't sure if he was on a ship or inside a living dream. And Vera was everywhere. She never seemed tired. Always calm, always graceful, always right. Ethan, on the other hand, managed to trip over invisible panels, misread alien text, and somehow insult a cleaning drone by calling it cute. It beeped angrily and sprayed him with foam. Vera had watched from the corner, expression unreadable. When he noticed her, she said softly, "You seem to have a gift for creating chaos." He wiped foam from his face. "Thanks, it's one of my better qualities." For a moment she almost smiled. Their mission was simple, on paper at least. Escort a small convoy through the Kristen Belt, a field of asteroids thick enough to crush a cruiser. The convoy carried rare minerals, and the Illyrian Guard had assigned Vera to lead. Ethan was there as the human liaison, mostly to observe. But observe wasn't in his nature. He spent every free moment learning the ship systems, running simulations, and fixing anything that hummed wrong. The ship didn't always like him touching things, though. Its control panels pulsed as if irritated, and once, when he tried to adjust the navigation grid, the console shut down completely. "Hey, I was helping," he protested. Vera appeared behind him, her voice calm but cool. "You are helping it lose patience." He turned to face her. "Do all Illyrians make fun of humans, or is it just you?" "Just me," she said, a glimmer of humor in her eyes. "You make it very easy." Despite her teasing, there was no malice in her tone. She fascinated him. How her voice stayed even when the ship shook, how her presence seemed to steady everything around her. And yet, for all her calm, there was a sadness behind her eyes he couldn't name. Later, during a routine systems check, the ship suddenly jolted. The lights flickered. Ethan grabbed the console. What was that? "Energy fluctuation," Vera said, already moving toward the main controls. "Brace yourself." The VHAL-10 lurched as debris struck the hull. Alarms flared. The ship's living systems pulsed red. Ethan's heart raced. Asteroids this close were supposed to be clear. "We are," she said sharply. "These are moving against the current." Her tone was sharper now, her focus absolute. She took the controls, moving with impossible speed. The ship twisted through the belt, gliding past shards of rock the size of buildings. Ethan manned the sensors, sweat beading on his neck. "They're accelerating." "Then so must we." She pushed the ship forward, dancing between death and open space. Ethan had never seen anything like it. The ship responded like a living creature to her touch, its energy flowing with hers. When the last asteroid finally drifted away, the bridge fell silent again. Ethan slumped back, breathing hard. You fly like a maniac." She turned, unbothered. "I fly to live." He chuckled. "Then I guess I owe you one." "You owe me nothing," she said softly. Then, after a beat, "But your reaction time was impressive." He blinked. "Was that a compliment?" "Do not let it go to your head." "Too late." For a moment their eyes met again, hers glowing faintly gold, his full of restless light. The hum of the ship softened as if listening. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He found himself wandering the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, cold and beautiful. Vera was already there, sitting quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly under the starlight. He hesitated before walking closer. "Didn't think you'd be the stargazing type." "I do not gaze," she said softly. "I remember." He sat beside her. "Home." She nodded once. It's far now. Our worlds drift apart every century. Soon, no human or Illyrian will see both skis. There was a weight in her voice that surprised him. She sounded lonely. Ethan wanted to say something comforting, but the words came out awkward instead. You know, humans are pretty good at fixing broken things. Maybe we'll figure out a way to reach it again. She looked at him, eyes softer now. You believe you can fix everything. He smiled faintly. Maybe not everything, but I can try. Vera's lips curved into a quiet smile. For the first time, it wasn't teasing. It was warm. Then perhaps, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, there is hope for you after all. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the ship, a bond began to form, fragile, strange, and full of light. The convoy was supposed to pass through the Kristen Belt without trouble. The charts were clean, the route verified, and Vera's calculations perfect as always. But trouble, Ethan had learned, never asked for permission. It started with a flicker on the radar, a ghost signal, faint and erratic, then another, and another. Ethan frowned at the screen. We've got movement at 7 o'clock, looks like debris. Vera's golden eyes narrowed. That's no debris. A second later, the comms lit up with static and alarms screamed through the VHAL-10. Out of the void, dark shapes emerged, pirate ships, sharp and jagged, like teeth glinting in the dark. Varkan raiders, Vera said grimly. Stay sharp, Lieutenant. Ethan's heart kicked into overdrive. Of course, because a calm space cruise would be too boring. Sarcasm in crisis, she muttered, truly a human trait. He grinned, trying to hide the fear crawling up his spine. We call it charm. The first plasma blast struck the hull, rattling the deck. Ethan stumbled, grabbing the console. They're targeting the convoy. Not for long, Vera said, her voice steady. Battle mode now. The bridge came alive. The floor vibrated as the VHAL-10's living systems flared awake, humming like a heartbeat of war. Panels reconfigured, glowing red. Ethan could feel the ship's pulse through his boots. Weapons online, Vera ordered. Manual or auto? Ethan asked. Manual. You humans like doing things the hard way. He smirked. You learn fast. She took the helm, hands gliding over the orbs of light that served as controls. The ship darted forward with impossible grace, weaving through the asteroid field. Ethan fired the cannons, his palms slick with sweat. Bolts of energy cut through the darkness, striking one raider and sending it spinning into the void. Ha, I got one. Vera glanced at him, a small smile tugging her lips. Impressive aim, beginner's luck. He laughed. I make my own luck. Her voice turned softer but still focused. Then make enough for both of us. The battle grew fierce. Rocks the size of mountains drifted between them, forcing sudden turns. Plasma fire streaked past like angry comets. The ship groaned with each maneuver, but Vera moved with perfect control, calm, calculating, alive. Ethan couldn't help but stare, even in the chaos. Her movements were poetry, every command precise, every motion smooth. She looked more like she was dancing with the ship than piloting it. A sudden blast shook them, throwing sparks from the ceiling. Ethan flinched. Shields dropping, 20%. Vera cursed under her breath, a rare sound from her lips. We need to end this, now. Ethan scanned the sensors. There's a magnetic rift up ahead, if we can lure them in. They'll lose control, she finished, eyes brightening. A dangerous idea. Danger's my specialty, he said with a grin. Clearly. The VHAL-10 turned sharply, engines roaring. The raiders followed, thinking the ship was retreating. Ethan could almost feel their greedy excitement through the scanners. Almost there, he said through gritted teeth. Come on, come on. The rift loomed ahead, glowing with swirling energy, beautiful and deadly. At the last second, Vera pulled up hard, flipping the ship sideways through a gap no sane pilot would attempt. Ethan's stomach dropped, but he kept firing. The raiders weren't so lucky. The first two ships were caught in the magnetic pull, spiraling apart as the rift tore them to pieces. The rest turned back, scattering like frightened birds. Silence fell, broken only by Ethan's ragged breathing. Then he laughed loud and disbelieving. "We did it! Holy stars, we actually did it!" Vera turned to him, her expression unreadable for a moment, then she smiled. Really smiled. "You are reckless," she said softly, "and brave, a dangerous combination." He grinned. "You're welcome." "You saved the convoy," she said, standing close now. "You saved me." Her voice was quiet, but the words hit harder than any blast. He looked at her, trying to joke but finding none of his usual humor. "Guess we make a good team." "Perhaps," she said, eyes glinting with something deeper. "Perhaps more than that." After the battle, the stars outside were calm again. The ship drifted peacefully, wounded but alive. Ethan leaned back in his seat, exhausted but smiling. "Next time, can we try a mission that doesn't almost kill us?" Vera looked out at the stars. Where would the fun be in that? He chuckled softly. "You're starting to sound human." "And you," she replied, turning to him, her gaze warm and fierce, "are starting to sound like an Illyrian." The hum of the ship settled, and for a moment so did their hearts. Two souls, one human, one alien bound by chaos, laughter, and something neither could quite name yet. Something that felt like the start of more than survival. Something that felt like connection. The stars outside the viewport drifted slowly as the V-10 sailed through quiet space. The battle was over, but the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was heavy, thick, and waiting to break. Ethan sat on the edge of the medbay table while Vera worked quietly, her fingers moving with practiced precision as she cleaned the small cut on his arm. Her touch was light, almost cautious, and yet every brush of her skin against his made his heart thump louder than any gunfire. He tried to make a joke. "You know, you could just give me a bandage like normal people." "You are not normal people, Lieutenant," she said softly. "You are human, fragile, loud, impossible to ignore." He smiled. "You make that sound like a compliment." "Perhaps it is." For a second they both fell silent. Her golden eyes met his, and something unspoken sparked between them, something that had been growing since the moment they met. But before Ethan could say anything, the ship's soft hum deepened, signaling a jump preparation. The moment passed like smoke in air. Later, as the crew rested, Ethan found Vera on the observation deck again, standing before the vastness of the stars. Her reflection shimmered faintly against the glass, her silver skin catching the starlight like liquid light. He hesitated at the doorway. "You always stand there after missions." "It helps me think," she replied without turning, "to remember what we fight for." He stepped closer, careful not to break whatever quiet magic hung in the air. "Back home, we used to stare at the stars and make wishes." She looked over her shoulder, curious. "Wishes?" "Yeah, you pick a star and hope it listens." "Do they ever listen?" He shrugged. "Sometimes, or maybe we just pretend they do so we feel less alone." Vera turned back to the window. "On my world, we don't make wishes, we make promises. Stars keep memories, not favors." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's beautiful." "It's sad," she said, "because memories fade." The tone of her voice changed, soft but distant. Ethan wanted to reach out, to touch her shoulder, to tell her she didn't have to carry whatever ghosts haunted her. But before he could, she spoke again. "Why do you risk so much, Ethan Cross?" she asked quietly. "You could have let the convoy fall, you could have died." He chuckled, trying to lighten the air. "It's kind of my thing. I don't like watching people get hurt." "People," she repeated, her gaze fixed on him, sharp but trembling at the edges. "Or just me?" The question caught him off guard. His throat tightened. I mean." "You hesitate," she said, stepping closer. "You act brave, but your eyes hide something else. fear, confusion. "I'm human," he said, trying to smile. "We're full of that." "You care for me." It wasn't a question. He froze. I care about a lot of people." Her golden eyes dimmed, the warmth fading like light behind clouds. She took a small step back. "I see." "No, wait, that's not what I meant." "You humans," she interrupted, voice calm but cold now, "always running from what you feel." He took a breath, heart pounding. "It's not that, it's just you're my commander, you're." "Alien?" she asked softly. "Too different." Her words hit harder than he expected. "No, that's not Vera, I just don't want to ruin." "You already have." And with that, she turned and walked away, her reflection vanishing into the stars. The next few days were unbearable. Ethan threw himself into work, fixing systems that didn't need fixing, double-checking routes, running simulations until his eyes burned. Every time he caught sight of her, she was distant, professional, polite, untouchable. The warmth was gone. Even the ship seemed to feel it. The hum in the halls was softer, slower, like a heartbeat fading. At night he sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the same stars she loved. He remembered her words, "Stars keep memories, not favors." He whispered to the glass, "Then remember this, all right. I didn't mean to hurt her." No stars answered. The next morning the ship's alarm broke the silence. A distress signal echoed through the corridors, sharp, urgent, and real. Vera appeared on the bridge, all command and control again. Her eyes didn't meet his. "Scout ship missing ahead," she said. "We're changing course." Ethan nodded stiffly, understood. As the V-Halten turned toward the unknown, the air between them felt colder than space itself. He wanted to speak, to say sorry, to explain, but the words stayed trapped inside. Outside the window, the stars shimmered quietly, keeping their promises and their memories. Inside, two hearts drifted apart, both pretending they didn't care. But the stars remembered. They always did. 3 days had passed since Vera stopped speaking to him. 3 long, quiet, miserable days. The V-Halten moved through the dark stretch of uncharted space like a ghost, its hum soft, its lights dim. The crew spoke in whispers, as if even the ship could feel the tension between its captain and the human who had once made her laugh. Ethan couldn't stand it. He hated silence. Silence was worse than gunfire. Gunfire, at least, meant something was happening. Silence meant everything was broken. He tried to approach her once, in the corridor outside the command deck. "Vera, can we talk?" She didn't even slow down. "We have nothing to discuss, Lieutenant." The formality stung. "Oh, so it's Lieutenant again now." "That is what you are," she said, not turning. "A soldier under my command, nothing more." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. It cut sharper than any blade. Ethan stood frozen as she walked away, her silver figure fading into the glow of the hall. He whispered to the empty air, "Maybe not to you." The next day, the V-Halten received a distress signal. Weak, fragmented, but real. "It's from the scout team," one of the crew reported. "They went ahead to scan the nebula." Vera leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Location?" "Sector 12, near the shadow belt." Ethan looked at the map and frowned. "That area's unstable. Magnetic storms, collapsing fields. No way they survived long." "We are not abandoning them," she said sharply. He hesitated. "Commander, if we go in there." "That's in order." The argument died on his tongue. He knew that tone. There was no changing her mind. As the ship entered the storm zone, lightning danced across the void, red and white like fire and ice colliding. The air buzzed with static. The ship trembled as if alive and afraid. Ethan gripped the console. "Readings are all over the place. We're blind in here." "Stay focused," she said. "They are out there." Minutes turned into hours. The storm worsened. Every few seconds the ship jolted violently. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the static, weak, broken. "This is Scout 3, under fire, pirates." Then nothing. Ethan looked at her. That came from inside the belt. "Set a course," Vera ordered. He hesitated again. "If we go deeper, we might not come back." "I will not leave them." Ethan sighed, frustrated. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Then stay here if you're afraid." That did it. He slammed his hands on the console. "You think I'm afraid of dying? I'm afraid of losing you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Even the ship seemed to fall silent. Vera turned to him, eyes wide, her usual composure cracking for the first time. "Ethan." But before she could answer, another explosion rocked the ship. A blinding flash filled the bridge. Systems screamed. When the light faded, Ethan blinked through the haze. Vera was gone. "Commander's life signal detected," one of the crew shouted. "She's been pulled into a magnetic drift." Ethan's heart dropped. "She's what?" "She's outside the ship, trapped in the field. She can't communicate." Ethan didn't think. He didn't plan, he just moved. He grabbed his suit and helmet, ignoring the protests behind him. "Lieutenant, the field will tear you apart." "Then I'll go quick," he yelled, locking his helmet into place. "Open the hatch." Space hit him like a frozen wave. The storm was a blur of light and darkness. He saw her tiny against the chaos, her silver body caught in glowing threads of energy, struggling but fading fast. "Hang on, Vera," he shouted, though she couldn't hear. He fired his thrusters, dodging bursts of plasma and shards of debris. Every second felt like forever. His suit alarm screamed as the magnetic force pulled him in. He reached her. Her eyes fluttered open, faint gold in the dark. "You came," she whispered through the comm, her voice weak. "Of course I did," he said, gripping her tightly. "You didn't really think I'd let you go alone, did you?" "You're a fool." "Yeah," he said, smiling through the fear, "but I'm your fool." He triggered the emergency tether, pulling both of them toward the ship. The storm fought back, but Ethan refused to let go. His suit cracked, oxygen warning flashing red. "Almost there," he muttered. "Come on, you stubborn." A final surge flung them through the field. The ship's airlock opened just in time. Crew members pulled them inside as the storm closed behind them. Ethan ripped off his helmet, gasping. He looked at her, weak, shaking, but alive. Vera's golden eyes met his. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then softly she said, "You risked everything." He smiled faintly. "Guess I couldn't stand the silence anymore." Her lips curved into the smallest, trembling smile. "Humans," she whispered, leaning closer, "always choosing chaos to show love." And as the ship sailed quietly out of the storm, their hands found each other, wordlessly, fearfully, beautifully, like two stars finally learning how to orbit the same sky. The ship was quiet again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This time it was gentle, almost peaceful, like the calm after a storm that had finally passed. Ethan lay in the medbay, blinking up at the soft blue lights. His body ached, his lungs still burned from the oxygen loss, but he was alive. Barely. When the door slid open, he thought he was dreaming. Vera stood there, wrapped in a thin medical shawl, her silver skin dim but still glowing faintly. Her eyes, those molten gold eyes, watched him with something he had never seen in her before: worry. "You're awake," she said softly. He gave a crooked smile. "You sound surprised." "You almost didn't make it." "Yeah, well," he said, trying to sit up, "I like dramatic entrances." She stepped closer, pressing a hand to his chest to keep him still. "You nearly died to save me." Ethan looked at her, his voice low but firm. "I wasn't going to let you go." Something flickered in her expression, conflict, emotion, something too raw for words. Then she turned her gaze away. "Humans," she murmured, "you love without sense." He smiled faintly. "And you pretend without feeling." She froze, her hand still against his chest. Their eyes met again and neither looked away. The air between them hummed with quiet tension, something warm, fragile, and dangerously close to becoming more. But before either could speak, the ship's alarm blared. The VHAL-10's main corridor erupted in flashing red light. Vera was already moving, commanding her crew with crisp precision. "Report. Unknown vessel approaching, Commander," one crew member called. "They're broadcasting no ID code." Ethan limped into the room, ignoring the medics behind him. Pirates again. Vera's jaw tightened. Worse, Varkan warship. Ethan frowned. "The ones we took down before." "Their leader," she said. "They've tracked us." He felt the energy shift, fear, anger, determination. The air pulsed with it. "All right," he said, cracking his knuckles. "Let's show them round two." "You are injured," she said sharply. "You will stay here." He grinned. "Vera, I've already died once this week. What's one more try?" Her glare softened into exasperation, but she didn't stop him. When the enemy ship appeared, it filled the viewport like a shadow swallowing stars. Its cannons glowed crimson, charging for the first strike. Ethan manned the lower defense turrets. The hum of the system felt like adrenaline in his veins. His pulse matched the ship's heartbeat. "Cross," Vera's voice came through the comm. "Do not miss." He grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." The first volley came, plasma bolts tearing through the dark. The VHAL-10 rolled, dodging half, shielding the rest. Ethan fired back, his shots cutting through the storm. One hit dead center. The enemy shields flickered. "Nice shot," Vera said, voice tight with focus. "I learned from the best," he replied. The battle raged. Sparks lit the bridge, and metal screamed under the weight of explosions. The living ship pulsed with pain but kept fighting. Then a warning flashed across the controls. Ethan's heart dropped. "They've locked onto your core. They're going to overload it." "I can stop it," she said quickly, already moving to the power chamber. "Vera, no, you can't. It must be done manually. Stay where you are." Her tone left no room for argument. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man to listen when someone told him not to care. He found her standing in the chamber, surrounded by arcs of blinding energy. The ship's heart glowed like a miniature sun, pulsing violently. "Vera," he shouted over the roar, "you'll burn yourself alive. It is the only way to stabilize the core." He took a step forward. "Then let me help." "You will die. We'll both die if you don't let me." She turned to him, her face illuminated by white light. "Why do you do this? Why can't you just stay safe?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Because I can't lose you again." For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The light, the sound, even time itself. Then she whispered, "Then come." Together they pressed their hands against the control core, channeling the energy back into balance. The heat was unbearable. Sparks tore through the air. Ethan felt the current running through his body, pain searing his nerves, but he didn't let go. Neither did she. With a final blinding flash, the energy burst outward, and then silence. When the light faded, they both collapsed, smoke rising around them. Ethan coughed weakly, still alive. Vera's laugh was faint but real, somehow. He smiled through the ache. "Told you, dramatic entrances and exits." She leaned closer, eyes soft. "You are impossible." "Yeah," he said, "but you like that about me." Her smile widened, slow and genuine. Then, without hesitation, she pressed her forehead to his, the alien gesture of deep trust. "I do," she whispered, "more than I should." Outside, the enemy ship drifted away, defeated. Inside, two souls sat in the glow of a still living heart, breathing the same air, bound by fire and something brighter. Something that no storm could ever break again. The VHAL-10 floated quietly through open space once more, its once shattered systems now humming like the steady heartbeat of something reborn. The stars outside burned soft and silver, reflected on the smooth glass of the ship's viewing deck. Ethan stood there alone, watching them. His arm was still bandaged, his ribs still ached, but he was alive, and so was she. Behind him, he heard the familiar sound of soft footsteps. Even without turning, he knew who it was. "You're supposed to be resting," Vera said gently. He smiled, and missed the stars, not a chance. "You almost died again." "I know," he said, turning to face her. "I should probably stop doing that, huh?" Her lips curved faintly. "That would make my life easier." "Yeah," he said, stepping closer, "but where's the fun in that?" For a long moment, they just looked at each other. No words, no orders, no pretending. Only the quiet rhythm of two hearts that had finally learned to beat in the same time. Later that evening, the ship's crew gathered to celebrate their survival. The air was light again, laughter echoing through the halls. For the first time in weeks, Ethan heard Vera laugh, really laugh. It wasn't her practiced, polite tone, but something warmer, human even. "I didn't think you knew how to relax," he said, leaning beside her as she watched her crew. "I didn't," she admitted softly, "until you came." He blinked. "I'll take that as a compliment." "Take it however you wish, Lieutenant." He grinned. "There's that word again, thought we were past ranks." Her golden eyes glowed faintly. "Perhaps we are." Hours later, when the celebration quieted and most of the crew had gone to rest, Ethan and Vera found themselves back on the observation deck. The ship was peaceful again, alive and content. Ethan rested his elbows on the railing. "You ever think about what happens next?" She looked at him, the starlight painting her silver skin with a glow that made her seem almost ethereal. "Next?" "Yeah," he said, "the war's ending, convoys safe, mission's done, what happens to us?" Vera tilted her head. "To us." He swallowed. "You know what I mean." She was silent for a moment. The stars moved slowly across her reflection. Then she said quietly, "I return to Elira. You will go back to Earth." The words hit harder than he expected, and that's it. It is the way of things, two paths, two worlds. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You sound like a poet trying to end a story. And you sound like someone who doesn't want to leave the last page." He turned toward her, his voice lower now. "Maybe I don't." The silence that followed was heavier than any battle they'd fought. Vera looked down at her hands, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the glass. "You humans," she said softly, "you feel too much." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, it's our curse." "And your gift." Their eyes met again, and this time she didn't look away. She took a slow step forward until the space between them was gone. "When I first saw you," she whispered, "I thought you were foolish, loud, reckless." He chuckled. "Accurate. But now I see," her voice softened. "You were only human, and somehow that was enough." Ethan reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek. "You think if I made a wish on one of those stars, it'd let me see you again?" "Stars do not grant wishes," she said. "They remember them." "Then remember this," he whispered, brushing his thumb against her skin. "I'll find you again, Vera, no matter how far our worlds drift." She smiled, eyes glowing like dawn. "Then I will wait." The ship's comms crackled suddenly, an incoming transmission from the Terran fleet. "Duty calling." Ethan sighed. "Guess that's my cue." Vera straightened, but her gaze lingered. "Goodbye, Ethan Cross." He took a step back, hand over his heart. "See you soon, Commander." As he turned to leave, she called softly, "You like it, don't you?" He paused, smiling over his shoulder. "You already know the answer." Her laughter followed him down the hall, light, real, beautiful. Later, when the VHAL-10 parted ways with the human fleet, the stars stretched wide between them once more. Vera stood alone at the window, the place where he had once stood. Her reflection shimmered faintly, golden eyes full of something fierce and human. "You're a fool," she whispered to the stars, "but you're my fool." And as the ship vanished into the silver horizon, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if remembering a promise made by two hearts from different worlds, bound not by orders nor fate, but by love strong enough to defy the stars themselves. As the VHAL-10 slipped into the stars, Ethan watched until its light became one with the heavens. He touched his chest, feeling the echo of her warmth. Somewhere out there, Vera was doing the same, two souls divided by galaxies but tied by something far stronger than distance. He smiled softly. "See you soon, Commander." And in that endless sea of light, a single star flickered brighter, as if answering him, keeping its promise, holding their memory, waiting for the day when human and alien would meet again. Not an ending, only a beginning.